All right, hey everyone, ready for another deep dive? Today, we're tackling a topic that's got UPSC mains written all over it, the India-US Trust Initiative. It's been all over the news lately, and for good reason. We're talking potential shifts in global supply chains, some serious geopolitical maneuvering. We'll be pulling insights from the Indian Express, Economic Times, and Business Today to break this down. But really, this is about giving you guys, the UPSC aspirants, the edge you need to understand what's going on and why it matters for your exams.
Yeah, and what's really fascinating here is how this initiative could reshape things on a global scale. I mean, we're not just talking about theoretical frameworks. This has the potential to really shift those real-world geopolitics, and that's something UPSC examiners are definitely going to be watching closely.
Absolutely. So first things first, what exactly is trust? Well, it stands for transforming relationship, utilizing strategic technology. At its core, it's about reducing those barriers to technology transfer between India and the US, easing up those export controls, and really giving a boost to high-tech commerce between the two nations.
Right, but we need to go a bit deeper than that. One of Trust's key objectives is actually creating a recovery and processing program for strategic minerals. We're talking lithium, rare earth elements, the stuff that goes into everything from your smartphone to, well, missile guidance systems.
And this is where the China angle becomes really impossible to ignore. You know, China controls a huge chunk of global rare earth element production, almost 70%. So by diversifying its sourcing through trust, India is looking to lessen its reliance on China and potentially gain a lot more leverage in those negotiations.
It's definitely a strategic move, no doubt about that. But it also kind of makes you wonder how trust compares to those existing multilateral frameworks that are already out there. I mean, India is already part of the US-led Mineral Security Finance Network, the Mineral Security Partnership. Why the need for a separate bilateral initiative?
That's a great point. And the sources actually highlight a pretty key difference: speed and depth.
Hmm.
Trust aid basically allows for faster execution and potentially much deeper collaboration compared to those larger multilateral groups. Basically, by going bilateral, you're able to cut through a lot of the red tape that can really bog things down.
Right, and this isn't just coming out of the blue either. Trustdeed actually aligns pretty neatly with existing national programs in both India and the US that are all about securing critical minerals. I mean, in the US, you've got things like the Critical Minerals and Materials Program that was launched back in 2020 with a pretty hefty budget of $675 million. And then there's the Battery and Critical Mineral Recycling Program, which they're launching in 2024 with another $125 million in grants.
And India is stepping up their game too. Just this past January, they approved the National Critical Minerals Mission. This is a 7-year plan with a massive budget of our S 16,300 crore. Our S of 7,000 crore of that is earmarked specifically for exploration, and they're putting another RS 1,500 crore towards actually incentivizing recycling. It's a clear signal that they're serious about becoming a major player in this whole space.
Absolutely. And it's interesting to note that while Trust kind of echoes the 2022 India-US Initiative on Critical and Emerging Technology, ICD, and its focus on tech collaboration, IC is really more about defense and security.
Right. Trust is casting a much wider net. It's about strengthening that economic resilience and technological innovation across various sectors, not just those tied to defense. So how does all of this play into your UPSC prep? What's the takeaway here, beyond just the headlines?
Well, Trust has the potential to really reshape India's global standing in a few key ways. First off, it strengthens the India-US strategic partnership. It signals this deepening trust and cooperation between two major players on the global stage, and that alone is a big deal.
No doubt about that. And we also can't forget about Atmanirbhar Bharat, India's push for self-reliance. Securing access to these critical minerals is absolutely vital for achieving that goal. I mean, we're not just talking about some abstract materials here. They're the foundation for all those strategic industries.
Exactly. Think about it. Defense, semiconductors, AI, quantum computing, energy storage, even biotechnology and space technology, all of these sectors rely on these minerals.
Mhm.
Without reliable access, India's ability to develop in these critical areas would be, well, severely limited. And what Trust does is it helps mitigate that risk by diversifying those supply chains and reducing their dependence on any one nation.
And let's not overlook the potential for, well, innovation. The initiative is designed to foster collaboration between governments, research institutions, and private companies in both countries. So we're talking about joint ventures, technology transfer, knowledge sharing in all those cutting-edge fields.
Yeah, it could be a game changer for accelerating progress in fields like AI, semiconductors, and quantum computing. India could go from being a consumer of technology to actually becoming a producer, a leader in innovation. That's a pretty significant shift.
Speaking of those critical industries, we've got to talk about the pharmaceutical sector. It's a major part of the India-U.S. trade relationship. Back in 2023, pharmaceutical products made up nearly 22% of India's consumer goods exports to the U.S. That's a huge chunk.
And that's exactly what trust aims to further strengthen. It would ensure a steady supply of those critical minerals that are absolutely essential for manufacturing active pharmaceutical ingredients, APIs. And, India is already the world's second largest API manufacturer right after China.
But that dominance, it's not guaranteed. There are some potential risks on the horizon, especially if new tariffs are imposed. By securing access to those essential minerals through trust, India can at least try to mitigate those risks. It could even lead to, increased market share as global pharmaceutical companies are looking for those more reliable and diversified suppliers.
Right. And let's get into the specifics of how trust will actually work. One core goal is to reduce those barriers to technology transfer. That could mean streamlining visa processes for researchers, establishing joint research centers, or even creating a fast-track approval process for those technology sharing agreements. We're basically talking about making it easier for companies and research institutions in both countries to truly collaborate.
And then there's those export controls. Trust aims to create a much more predictable and transparent framework for exporting sensitive technologies and materials. This isn't just about boosting trade, it's about building trust and confidence between those businesses in both countries.
And of course, it's about enhancing high-tech commerce overall. Trust is designed to create a more favorable environment for companies in those cutting-edge sectors like AI, semiconductors, biotechnology, fostering that innovation and economic growth on both sides.
But there's a potential wrinkle that the sources highlight. While trust does broaden the scope for collaboration, it doesn't actually grant Indian companies the same tax benefits under the U.S. Inflation Reduction Act, or IRA, that Japanese companies currently enjoy.
Yeah, that's a point of contention, for sure. The IRA offers some pretty significant incentives for companies involved in the production of battery components and critical raw materials. So the question is, will this create an uneven playing field for Indian companies, or will it be addressed through future negotiations and agreements? These are definitely questions that you should be thinking about as you analyze this initiative.
All right, we've covered a lot of ground so far, but before we move on, let's just go back to those, well, unsung heroes of modern technology. The critical minerals and rare earth elements, why are they so important?
It all comes down to their unique properties and the really vital role they play in such a wide range of strategic industries. They're literally the building blocks of so much of what we take for granted. Take the defense sector, for example. Critical minerals like neodymium and praseodymium, they're essential for those high-performance magnets used in missiles, fighter jets, even radar systems.
And what about all that cutting-edge tech, semiconductors, AI hardware, that sort of thing?
Those rely heavily on minerals like gallium and indium, to create those incredibly intricate circuits that power our smartphones and computers. All those devices we depend on every single day.
And of course, we can't forget about the electric vehicle revolution that's going on. The batteries that power those cars and the whole system for storing renewable energy, they depend heavily on lithium, cobalt, and nickel.
And even feels like quantum computing, biotechnology, medical diagnostics, they wouldn't even be possible without these minerals. Quantum computers need ultra-pure silicon and superconducting materials. Medical imaging relies on europium and terbium. Even space technology depends on things like scandium and these special heat-resistant alloys.
Yeah, it's pretty mind-boggling when you really stop and think about it. All these minerals, they're literally the foundation for so much of the innovation that's happening today.
Exactly. And that's precisely why securing those diversified supply chains for these minerals is so crucial. China's current dominance in this whole arena has raised some, well, valid concerns about potential bottlenecks and vulnerabilities. What happens if that access to these minerals is disrupted? It could have ripple effects across, well, the entire global economy.
And that's where trust comes in, right? It's a proactive step by India to ensure its access to these vital resources. And ultimately, it's about reducing their reliance on any single supplier. It's a move towards greater self-reliance and strategic autonomy, a theme that, by the way, always comes up in those UPSC exams.
Absolutely. It really reflects India's growing ambition on the world stage and its determination to secure its place as a, leading player in this 21st century.
Now, let's maybe switch gears a little bit. We've talked a lot about those potential benefits of trust, but let's, be realistic. No initiative that this ambitious unfolds without some challenges.
Right. And one that immediately comes to mind is implementation. I mean, trust lays out a pretty ambitious framework, but actually putting it into action, that's going to require meticulous planning and a ton of coordination. It's one thing to have a blueprint, but actually building that skyscraper, that's a whole other challenge.
Especially when you consider how many players are involved. Multiple government agencies, private companies, research institutions, all with their own, priorities and ways of doing
Oh,
things.
yeah, aligning those priorities, navigating those bureaucratic hurdles, bridging those cultural differences, those are all potential roadblocks that need to be, well, addressed.
And then there's the whole issue of intellectual property rights. As this technology transfer and these joint ventures become more prevalent, protecting that sensitive intellectual property becomes, well, absolutely paramount.
Right. Think about it from the perspective of, a company that's developed cutting edge technology. They're not going to be eager to just share their innovations if they're not confident that their intellectual property will be protected.
So it's about striking that balance, encouraging that collaboration, but also safeguarding that intellectual property. And that's going to require some robust legal frameworks and clear communication between both India and the U.S.
We also have to consider the geopolitical landscape. We've already talked about how trust is, in part, a response to China's dominance in that critical minerals market. But how will China react to this, strengthening of the India-U.S. partnership?
That's a great question, and I bet it's one that those UPSC examiners are going to be very interested in. Will China perceive trust as a threat and respond with some countermeasures? Or will they try to engage in their own strategic partnerships to try and maintain their influence? These are the kinds of geopolitical dynamics that can have a massive impact on the global balance of power.
Yeah, it's a complex game of chess where every move has the potential to, well, set off a chain reaction. As aspiring diplomats, you need to be able to think several steps ahead and really understand those broader implications.
Now let's shift gears again and let's talk about some of the exciting opportunities that trust could unlock. Because despite the challenges, the potential benefits are, well, pretty significant. For India, one area where trust could have a transformative impact is actually boosting its domestic manufacturing capabilities.
Oh, absolutely. By securing access to those critical minerals and collaborating on those advanced technologies, India could really strengthen its industrial base and potentially become a global hub for high-tech manufacturing.
So we're talking job creation, attracting foreign investment, really driving that economic growth.
Hmm.
And it's not just about replicating existing technologies. It's about fostering innovation and developing India's own technological capabilities.
It's about becoming a leader, not just a follower, in that global technology landscape. And that's where trust could really help India take a leap forward. Another key area is energy security.
Right. As the demand for electric vehicles and renewable energy keeps rising, securing a reliable supply of those critical minerals, lithium, cobalt, they're going to become even more crucial. And by partnering with the U.S., India could diversify its energy sources, reduce its dependence on those fossil fuels, and really transition towards a more sustainable energy future.
And let's not forget about the potential boost to India's soft power. By collaborating with the U.S. on those cutting-edge technologies and working together to address those global challenges like climate change, pandemics, India could really enhance its reputation as a, responsible global power.
It's about more than just economic or military strength. It's about showcasing India's technological prowess, its commitment to innovation, and its ability to work with other nations to find solutions to, shared problems. That's what true soft power is all about.
Now, as we're approaching the end of part 2 here, let's consider a potential scenario. Imagine that trust test has been successfully implemented. India has become a major player in that global critical minerals market. Its domestic manufacturing is booming, and its technological capabilities have really advanced significantly.
So how would this transformed India, how would it impact its relationships with other countries? Would it strengthen those existing alliances or lead to new ones? How would it alter those regional power balances, especially in the Indo-Pacific?
These are the kinds of questions that, well, UPSC examiners just love to ask. They require you to think critically, analyze those complex scenarios, and demonstrate a deep understanding of how international relations really work in the real world.
So as we wrap up our deep dive into trust, let's kind of broaden our perspective a bit. How does this initiative actually fit into India's, larger foreign policy goals. Those UPSC exams love to test your understanding of India's place on the world stage, right?
Oh, absolutely. And it's a great question. I mean, it really gets to the heart of what makes India's foreign policy so fascinating. It's all about strategic autonomy, that freedom to make decisions without being, beholden to any single country. And they're also pursuing what's called a multipolar approach, which means, engaging with many different nations and building these diverse partnerships.
But wouldn't something like trust, which focuses so heavily on the U.S., kind of contradict that whole multipolar approach?
Well, not necessarily. Think of it this way. Trust doesn't actually lock India into some exclusive bloc or, limit its ability to work with other countries. It's more about choosing the right tool for the job. And if the goal is, securing those critical minerals, boosting technological innovation, enhancing economic resilience, well, partnering with the U.S. through trust makes a lot of sense.
So it's not about picking sides. It's about strategically leveraging those partnerships to achieve those, specific goals.
Exactly. It's about adding another powerful tool to India's diplomatic toolbox, a tool that can be used to advance its interests in, well, various areas, from trade and investment to even defense and security. And let's not forget about, the Indo-Pacific region.
Oh, yeah, that's become such a focal point in global geopolitics,
Yeah.
especially with, China's growing assertiveness in the region. We know India's already working to strengthen those partnerships with, well, like-minded countries, the U.S., Japan, Australia, and others.
And trust really fits right into that strategy. By focusing on those critical minerals and advanced technologies, it kind of contributes to a more stable and secure Indo-Pacific. It's about building that network of partnerships that can, well, balance out China's influence and promote a more rules-based order in the region.
So it sounds like India is becoming a lot more proactive on the world stage,
Yeah.
using these initiatives like trust to really secure its place as, a global power.
Absolutely. And as India continues to rise, those partnerships will become even more crucial. I think trust is a really prime example of how India is, shaping those partnerships to advance its interests and its vision for the future. But let's zoom out even further for a second. How might an initiative like this actually impact the global order as a whole?
Right? I mean, we're living in a time of massive transformation. Technological advancements, climate change, geopolitical shifts, they're reshaping the entire international system. So where does trust fit into that bigger picture?
Well, for one thing, it kind of signals a shift towards greater cooperation between, those major powers, even amidst all the competition and rivalry that's out there. It shows that there's still room for those strategic partnerships that can tackle those shared challenges and advance those common interests.
So for India, this presents both opportunities and responsibilities then, right?
Exactly. It's a real opportunity for India to leverage its growing economic and technological influence and really help shape those global norms and institutions. But it also comes with the responsibility to, well, use that influence wisely to promote peace, stability, and sustainable development.
Absolutely. And remember, as UPSC aspirants, you're not just prepping for exams. You're preparing to be the leaders who will actually guide India through this, complex and uncertain future. And understanding initiatives like trust will be invaluable as you navigate those challenges and opportunities.
Yeah, I mean, the world is changing rapidly, and India is right at the forefront of that change. By really grasping those forces at play, the strategic partnerships being formed, and the innovations that are shaping the future, well, you'll be well equipped to contribute to India's rise as, a global leader.
So if you're aiming to ace those UPSC exams, don't just skim the headlines, dive deep. Check out those insightful articles from the Indian Express, Economic Times, and Business Today. They'll give you a much more nuanced understanding of this trust initiative. It's a topic that's very likely to show up in both the mains and prelims exams, trust me.
And remember, this is just the beginning of the conversation. Don't hesitate to leave your thoughts, your queries down in the comments below. We'd love to hear your perspectives and, continue this discussion.
Keep those brains buzzing, those UPSC prep books open, and hit that like and subscribe button to stay updated on, well, all things current affairs. Until next time, keep learning and stay curious.